Okay, so we've started recording again. So here I've got a car which was bought for 24,000. And like I said, you're going to have a appreciation type question at a rate of 8.5%. So the first thing you should be trying to find here is what we call the multiplier. Okay, so multiplier, how do we get this? To find your multiplier, you've got your calculator. Your multiplier is 100% plus 8.5%. So if you put that in your calculator, hopefully you will get 108.5%, which is 1.085. So that's called the multiplier. So you get a mark for just writing this. Now, because it's over 4 years, you need to put your multiplier to the power 4 time your original price. So now the new value after 4 years, the value is going to be 24,000 times the multiplier to the power of 4, because it's 4 years. That gives you a second mark. And now you do the calculation, 24,000 times 1.085 to the power of 4, and I'm getting 33,260.60882. Because it's money, we've got to give it in 2 decimal places, even if they've not told us, which give us 61. And that is the 2 decimal place. And you get your third mark. Okay, so you won't get any depreciation question, like I said, but make sure you know how to find your multiplier. Your multiplier is whatever you've got, 100% plus the new percentage. Okay. Any question with this? Should be okay. So the next question here is to see if you remember a NAT4 doing a bit of distance, speed, and time. So speed on your car, what is your unit for speed? Miles per hour. That is the same as miles divided per hour. And you've got distance at the top. So speed is equal to distance divided by time. Now, what is the question asked? Calculate the distance. So we need to make the distance the new subject of our formula. So you time both sides by time, distance becomes speed time time. What is the speed? 310 to the power 8 time 1.5 seconds. And remember, we need to write our answer in scientific notation. And if you do that, I think your calculator might give it to you straight away. Time 1.5, I'm getting, oh no, the calculator give me 4, 5, and 7 zeros. Now to write that in scientific, you put, remember here, an imaginary decimal point, and then you move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, till you get a number between 1 and 9, which is 4.5 times 10 to the power 8 distance, and it's in meter. I don't think you get mark taken away if you forget the the unit. But there you go. Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3 to give it in scientific. Any question? Next one. This time we've got calculate to 2 decimal places the mean. So same as earlier on, for mean, you need to go X. First of all, how many you've got here? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna line them up from the smallest to the biggest. 6.85, 6.96, 7.05, 7.05, and the last one. Actually, they were already from the biggest to the smallest, no? I should have noted that. Anyway, so I know my mean is going to be somewhere between there. So X, we put a table for that. So 6.83, 6.85, 6.96, 7.05, 7.05, 7.07. So this process, we need to calculate X bar. So X bar, you add all these up, which gives you 41.81. And to find X bar, we divide 41.81 divided by 6, because n equals 6. And if you do that correctly, you should get 6.9683. Because they've asked us to give our answer to 2 decimal places, 6.97. And this time we do 6.83 minus 6.87, so you get minus 0.14, minus 0.12, minus 0.01, 0.08, 0.08, and the last one, 0.10. Here, you don't have to add them up because remember we had to round the numbers. So it's more like when you don't have to round, you would get a 0. You just need to calculate X minus X bar square. And here you get 0.01, sorry, 0.0196, 0.0144, 0.0001, 0.0064, 0.0064, and last one, 0.0100. And if you add all these together, you get 0.0569. That gives you a mark. That gives you a mark. How do you get our other marks? You look SD, standard deviation. The formula tells us that is square root sum of that X minus X bar square over n minus 1. You just replace n 0.0569 divided by 5, then you take the square root. And that, writing that gives you a mark. And that is 0.01138. Square root of all that is 0.1066. 2 decimal place, 0.11. another mark. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. 4 marks. Now they've asked us to compare 0.14 to 0.11. And we had 6.97. So 6.97 to be compared. So these are the games in Rio. And these are the games in Athens, yeah. So the comparison, we're going to do 0.11. So 2 statements to make. The first one, we would say the distances jumped. The distances jumped were greater on average. Important. So 2 things here is average and distances jumped. In Rio, because in Rio, they were jumping 7.02 compared to 6.97. And the second statement to get your second mark, there was more variation in Rio. In the distances jumped in Rio. Again, because 0.14. Okay, so there was more variation in the distance jump or more spread. Same thing. Or less consistent. Consistency. All these are the same thing. More spread, consistency, variation. Any of those you put in as long as it makes sense. Okay, 6 marks for that. These usually you guys are quite good with that. We expand first. 6x plus 42 equal 20 minus 5x. That's, believe it or not, that gives you a mark. Then 6x plus 5x, that's 11x. Minus 42 plus 20, negative 22. That's another mark. And x is just negative 22 divided by 11. That is negative 2. 3 marks. Okay. And if you got a minute to check, you do negative 2 plus 7, that's 5. 5 times 6, 30. Negative 4 minus 2 is minus 6 times 5, 30. So both are 30. And you know you've got this in the bag. Here we've got, okay, so we've got length of an arc. So length of arc. So what's the formula? Length of arc. The formula is angle divided by 360 times 2 pi r or pi d. Here we've been given the radius, so we're in good shape. They've told us the angle is 142 over 360 times 2 times pi times 3.5. Plug that in your calculator, and that gives you 8.6742, which you can round to 8.7 centimeter to 1 decimal place. And this time, because it's the length, you need to put the unit. For your marks, angle put together, formula replace, answer given correctly. 3 marks. In this one, I've got a shot that has been reduced by 40%. So that means 60% of the price is £27. I want to know the original price. So 1% is 27 divided by 60, and 100% is 100 times 27 divided by 60. And if you do that, it should come up with £45. 3 marks. Yeah. Next one, rules of indices. So you deal with the numerator first. So that would be equal to 3 times 4, which is 12, x to the power 6 plus 2, which is 8, over 6x square. So you get a mark for that. Just writing that gives you a mark. Now to get your second mark, 12 over 6, that's 2. X to the power 8 minus 2. X to the power 6. Second mark. Okay. Any question on that? Here I've got an area, or area, you won't get sector area. So we can move on to the next one. The next one is use the discriminant to determine the nature. Again, you won't get a question like this where you've been asked to use the discriminant to determine the nature. So the discriminant, remember, is b squared minus 4ac. That's what the discriminant is, where you've got a here, b here, and c. And if we calculated this, we would get negative 20 square minus 4 times 25. And that would be 400 minus 400. And when you've got a discriminant that is 0, you've got 2 equal roots. But again, you're not going to be tested on anything like that. But you will be tested on something to do with Pythagoras. And why do I know that? Because this is not 4 plus a skill here. Plus, most of the time you get these, they call them trains, chimneys. And if you look at past paper, you will see plenty. So the first thing you need to identify here is right angle triangle to get you your first mark. So I've got 2.5 meter here. I'm looking for this distance. Oh, sorry, I'm looking for, this is x over 2. The tank is filled, radius 2.5, depth of 4.5 meters. So I've got 4.5 meter here. Because you've got a radius here of 2.5 meter, then you need to say that this is 4.5 minus 2.5, and that is 2 meter. So I've got short side, the longer side, and I'm looking for, here is x over 2, half of x. So calculate x. So I just need to find x over 2. So if we call that y, and you know that y square is the longest one square, 2.5 square minus the short one. Then that means y is just square root of 2.5 square minus 2 square. And that gives me 1.5 meter. So if y, which is half of x, is 1.5, x is just double that. So this would give me my first mark. This my second mark. X is just double this distance here. And what's 2 times 1.5? 3 meter. And that would be your mark there. So what other depth would give the same surface width? So you can say by symmetry, what other depth? So by symmetry, we would have the same depth as 2.5 minus 2. Yeah? So if you look at it here, you would need to be here at 2. So if this is 2, then 2.5 minus 2, you can just say by symmetry, at 2.5 minus 2, which is 0.5 meter, we would get the same width. That's probably why it's just 1 mark. Anyone would have thought about that by looking at this? It was a tricky question, I would say. So the
I don't remember doing this one.
sorry,
I don't remember doing this one.
that was question 10 from. Oh, you mean the bottom bit?
No, like just this question. I've not seen this question. I don't know. I must have missed it.
Okay. I would say the second question was a bit tricky, but what they ask you here is this distance here, when would you have it at the bottom? You would have it basically at 2.5 minus 2. I nearly missed the question. So converse of Pythagoras. Is this set square acceptable? So the company said it would make perfect right angles. For that to be true, you need to say something in the line of, if we have a right angle triangle, then I'm going to call this A, I'm going to call this B, I'm going to call this C. If we have a right angle triangle, then A square plus B square has got to be equal to C square. Now we're going to calculate the left-hand side by saying that it's A square plus B square. You put that in your calculator, 8.1 square plus 10.8 square. And that gives me 182.25. We do the same for C square, the right-hand side there. So that's my right-hand side. C square equal 13.5 square. And I get the same answer. Is this set acceptable? You say yes, since left-hand side is equal to right-hand side. The set, we have a right angle. Set is acceptable. And this is how you get your third mark. One for calculating the left side and the right side. Okay, just use converse of Pythagoras to prove that we've got a right angled triangle. Solving, okay, so the question here is this: when you are asked to solve anything to a certain number of decimals, you know you're going to have to use the quadratic formula. Plus and minus b squared minus 4ac over 2b. So that's given to you. First thing first, find out what a is equal to, b equal to, and c, remember c is the whole number, negative 11. That's the bit that people sometimes put 11. Then you would calculate first b squared minus 4ac. And when you do that, you get 113. And now you know x is minus 5 plus and minus root 113 divided by 2 times 2, which is 4. So you get a mark for this and a mark for this, 2 marks. Now to get your 4 marks, you need to plug that into your calculator to get your 2 answers, minus 5 plus root 113 over 4, minus 5 minus root 113, again, the whole thing over 4. So whatever you see written there is what you put in your calculator. And by doing so, I'm getting 1.4075 for the first one, negative 3.9075 for the second one. We were asked to give our answer to 2 decimal places, 1.41 minus 3.91. Both to 2 decimal places. And that's you. You've got all your mark there. Marks for this one, marks for this one. All right. Again, another one where we've got to solve. So solving, same thing. First thing, get rid of that 6. How do you get rid of a 6? We time by 6 both sides. Because 6 over 6 is 1. So you get 4x minus 5 equal 12x. And guess what? This gives you already a mark. Now I'm going to put the x's on one side. So it'd be good to have them positive. So I'm going to move the 4x on that side. So negative 5 equal 8x. That is another mark. And then your last mark, x is just negative 5 over 8. That is 3 marks. Yeah. So some people would move that 12 on that side, which makes it negative, work with negative and positive. So you should get the same answer at the end. But again, don't leave your answer as a 5 over negative 8, guys. During an exam, I've seen that marks not given. You either put minus 5 over 8 like this, or negative 5 divided by 8. But don't put the negative as your final at the bottom, okay? Avoid that. Any questions? So again, during the exam, you won't get a question like this. It's just going to be a sine bx, which means here you would have had, instead of 4, this line would have been up here. So that would have been a 3 and a 3 and a minus 3. So on the exam, that would have been right through there. This would have been a 3. This would have been a 3. This could have been a minus 3. And a is 3. So you would go a equals 3. B is how many period do we see within 360? That would have been 2. I've seen 2 periods here. And if I move it up, C would just be 0, right? Because we've changed it. Okay. So that question during an exam would just be 2 marks, not 3. All right. Last 2 questions. Write down the coordinates of the turning point. So turning points happen, remember, when this is equal to 0. So at x equal 2. And when x equal 2, y equal 1. Coordinates 2, 1. You need to make it like that. Okay. So 1 mark for identifying, 1 mark for marking them. Write down the axis of symmetry. So that happened at the turning point when x equal 2. So you need to write x equal 2. It is an equation, something equal. That would be your mark. Write down the coordinate of the point where the graph meets the y-axis. So that's what we call when we hit this x equals 0, the y-intercept. Same thing. So on y-axis, x equals 0. And when x equals 0, y is -2 square plus 1. That is 5. So how would you write the coordinates again? Point is at coordinate 0 for x, 5. Only 1 mark. A lot of work for just 1 mark. And then you would be asked to sketch and annotate. So this one, if x is there, y is there, we said that we've got 2, so that's 1, 2, and 1. Then we get 0 and 5. And that's it. And that is your axis of symmetry. So if that is the axis of symmetry, so you've got another point here. So you just get on your pencil and just draw something that passes by there and go back up. Turning point, sketch fully. So you need to annotate 2, 1 here and then 0, 5. That's what they mean by sketch fully. If you don't annotate, you lose a mark. So the shape gives you a mark and annotations would give you another mark. And fully, because we've done x equal 2, would be your axis of symmetry. Any question on this one? Which means we can go to the last one. Calculate the volume of a cone. So again, you would look at your formula sheet. Volume is 1/3 pi r square times h. 1/3 times pi r. What's the r? Oh, let's say d is 3. So if d equals 3, r is half of d, 1.5. So you need to put 1.5 square here. And the height is just that height here, 7. Put that in your calculator, 16.4933. Did they ask us to give it to a particular number? No, I'm just going to do 1 decimal place. Centimeter cube, guy, volume centimeters. So maybe you should put something to remind you to 1 dp. Okay. 1, 2. So the last question here, again, I'm going to use my formula sheet. Volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cube. Find the radius. So I'm going to now calculate that by replacing 268.08 equal 4/3 time pi time r cube, 1 mark. Then r is just 26, so cube root time by 3 times 268.08 divide by 4 pi. And you plug that in your calculator to the nearest centimeter. Always reading the questions. I get 3.9999 ... which is to the nearest centimeter, 4 centimeter. To the nearest centimeter. Okay. And that would be another mark to plug that in and another mark to give your answer. So that was Booster Paper 2. But like I said, it would have been good if you had tried it, because then you would have had a bit more help with that. So look through revision module. Okay, so that's us done for tonight. So I'm gonna now stop the recording so that those